I'm David Suzuki. I was born into a society that rejected me because of my race and dismissed me despite all my research and learning. Using the power of the media, I bested the racism, the logging companies, and persuaded Canadians to fight for the environment. When I was 6 years old, my family and I were put into an internment camp called Slocan Valley, BC. We were there simply because we were Japanese and Japan was on the other side of the war. We all fought gammari, which in Japanese means suck it up. I still feel like I was being told I wasn't a Canadian. I wonder, what can you do when you've got no power? They were telling us you're awful, that you don't deserve to be Canadians. We are allowed to own 70 pounds each of household items, and everything else would be sold. The country we were born and raised in said to us, "You are not trustworthy." I had to use my brain to remain confident in myself and my identity as a part of our society. The brawl of Canadian racism and the loss of our economic power was a challenge to all people of color when I was a child and throughout my teenage years. In my teenage years, I was always on the outside because of my race. When I got to Leamington, the boast of that town was that no colored person stayed past sunset. When you live in that environment, it's hard to know what to do with yourself socially when you're so isolated. What do you do when you're walking around wishing you could go on a date and there was no one you could ask out? Well, you go to the swamp. During my years as a professor at UBC, I was a part of the protest movements of the 60s. I wondered what values of the society was promoting during the Vietnam War years in the 60s and did not like it. There is a famous video of me at the time thinking about the way people behaved. In that video, I said, basically, we're all fruit flies. We hatch out as maggots and we defecate all over the environment. Other smaller maggots eat the defecation and get some nourishment out of it. The bigger you get, the more maggots you can crush with your weight. I took on the logging companies for defecating all over the environment, and I won. Despite the fact that money gave them lots of power, we saved old-growth forest already the province and forced clear-cutting to end through reasoned argument and scientific evidence. My biggest challenge was convincing enough of the public that the environment mattered. Even as public interest changed to other things, I used the power of the media. I began my media career in the 1970s with a children's show called Suzuki on Science, which allowed me to speak to the next generation. I later founded a radio broadcast called Quirks and Quarks, now hosted by Bob McDonald. It remains the most successful science podcast of all time and is listened to by educated people. Throughout the 70s, I wrote for a science magazine with the same audience. Since 1979, I've been hosting the famous TV show, The Nature of Things. It was my aim to have all types of viewers take a look at the natural world. Through The Nature of Things, one of my first books was called The Sacred Balance, which was first published in 1997, and I was rated 4th in the list of the greatest Canadians of all time. All this public presence allowed me to convince the powerful federal government that we need to protect complete ecosystems, even when things like shipping routes are affected. This year, the Haida Gwaii Marine Conservation Area was founded, the first area to include both land, sea, and ocean shelf. It also recognizes the sacred nature of the traditional knowledge of the Haida Indians. This year, when I talked to the Minister of the Environment, I said it wasn't about who had the power and the nature of protest. It was about what each of us knows about the holistic nature of our Earth. In my mind, it was a key triumph. In my 70s, I can see that what the brain knows is far more important than what the biggest maggot can do.